Back to this 4-hour structure. So the 4-hour structure that you see in your manual is a great structure to R&D for an evening or an early morning mastermind group. It will say, on a monthly basis or over the 12 months, but I want to be really clear about this, is again, you must determine that based upon your process, okay? Or process if you're from the US, depending on where you're at. Now, tailor the event and tailor the mastermind meeting to follow these 3 fundamentals. And by the way, I'm foreshadowing a little bit in terms of the hybrid model, but I'm going to tell you the basics that have to happen in that structure. Is that number 1, we need a component for you to make sure that there is true, genuine connection and support of the participants. And this is where, in terms of our hybrid model, we would call this a little bit of the support group piece. So this is where we do a little check-in, this is where people get to outflow, this is where people get to celebrate their successes, this is where people get to articulate their challenges, all the rest of it. And everyone in the community participates in that. Now, here's a little hint to this, is that you can tell if the support group component of your mastermind is not going well. And this is the reason, and this is the way you can see it, is that you know that there are, and again, I've said this a bunch of times, I will say it again, our purpose is to get the community to share network, resources, wisdom, and experiences. And by the way, gang, I see some people are jumping on here a little bit on the later side, but come on in, say hello, tell us where you're from, all that fun stuff. We always want to hear from you and know what's going on. So, if in your group people have resources and can support one another, but they're sort of playing their cards close to their chest and they're not really being truly generous in terms of giving and really supporting the rest of the group, when that happens, the flaw is we have not created meaningful enough relationships with the people in the group for them to give to one another, quite literally in a manner that you would give to your family. And the standard that we have is we call it familial support. Hey Chris, thanks. I love the 3 Little Lies webinar. You know what? I actually enjoyed that as well. And on that note, I'm going to do a little sidebar here for a brief moment. Gang, we are doing an encore because I've had a ton of emails and Facebook messages saying, hey, I missed the live training, and we're going to be doing that again on Thursday. So there's a link above or below. I'm not sure where Stephen is putting it, but if you want to get a more in-depth training and get really down to who you need to be and what you need to do for your mastermind to rock, join me on Thursday. And I do them live, so the encore is not a recording, that is me live. We get to interact and have conversations. So let's just go back to this whole piece of we're looking for familial support, where you would support the people in that group in the same way you support your family. So if people are holding close to their chest their network, wisdom, resource, and support, we have a problem with the connection. So you always have to have the connection in your mastermind structure. Now, the next piece is this. We use a hot seat process. And a hot seat process is where a couple of the members, or one of the members, depending upon how you want to structure it, comes with a goal or an issue, and we put them on the hot seat, and the rest of the group serves and supports them with ideas, network, wisdom, resources, and support. That process is imperative, and it's probably the true component of what we will call the true masterminding component of the meeting. But we always want to also have a little bit of content. So these are the 3 pieces of the hybrid model: support group, mastermind, and a little bit of content. And that content is designed to move the group forward to its stated promise and objective. So for example, in the creation circles, which is what the mentor's manual was modeled after, in the creation circles, or created to support, I mean, we had what we called the 12 pillars of the Creator's Code. And each month we focused on one of the pillars. So January was always, I embrace personal accountability. Other examples were, I support and, sorry, I just had a complete and utter brain fart. I align my life and resources around my passions and my gift. I am a conscious creator, not an unconscious consumer. So there's a whole bunch of those pieces. And there would always be just a little point in the meeting for them to consider where are they at and how are they going to apply that for the next month. So, a couple of things. I just want to make sure okay, if you're just joining us, say hello, let us know where you're from, all that fun stuff. And that is the first piece. The 3 ludicrous lies, link below. Yes, and yeah, if you want to, I just put the link up on the screen, so make sure you get registered for that. It's coming up tomorrow, I guess it's on Thursday. So I'm just going to hide that. So number 1, customize your meeting structure, the length of time. And by the way, lots of people are like, I just want to do a faster mastermind. I want to do it in 2 hours and those sorts of things. I'm a fan of speed. but speed at the expense of creating the relationships and the social binding that makes the mastermind work is not a wise idea. So you're going to have to adapt that as is appropriate for you. All right, the next piece. If you have not, by the way, if you're just joining us, I asked you to make sure that you download... Chris, how do high D types do in the hot seat? In a nutshell, you have to tell them to be quiet. I'll come back to that in a moment, I promise. So let's go back to, I lost my place on my outline. Ground rules, yes. So when you are going to use this manual, now we have some suggested ground rules. You can throw ground rules away, you can add ground rules to your heart's content, but there are 3 key elements that I want you to tailor and to adopt based upon your mastermind. First and foremost is, if you are doing a longer term mastermind, and this is like a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month mastermind, let me say this as clear as I can. You must have ground rules. You must have ground rules, because people go through the ups and the downs and the dips and the valleys and all those pieces, and without the consistency in the framework of ground rules and for nudging them to show up in their most powerful manner, if we don't do that, frankly, the mastermind goes to hell in a handbasket, okay? So number 1, you must have ground rules. Here's number 2 to that, and this goes back to facilitator skills. Ground rules are not something that are just arbitrarily read for fun and entertainment. Ground rules, number 1, we get agreement to. So everyone in agreement to the ground rules, please raise your hand. If you break one of the ground rules, let's be clear about this. We are going to talk about it. Okay? This is not going to be just, I hope they keep them. You as the facilitator, you as the mastermind leader are required to call them out on it. So if you have 10 people that put up their hand and say, we will be on time and we will respect one another's wisdom and time and energy and commitment by being on time, and then Sally walks in 15 minutes late, then you're going to need to address that. And how, that could be something similar. So, hey, Sally, notice that you have a broken agreement. Do you acknowledge you have a broken agreement? Is there anything you want to say to the group in terms of getting ourselves back on track? Because you have frankly interrupted, wasted our time, and you have diminished the value of the group. So you got to call them on it. A ground rule without the commitment to enforce it is actually diminishing the quality of your mastermind. It diminishes the quality of your mastermind. So either have them and enforce them, or don't have them at all. And I got to tell you this, if you're doing a long-term mastermind, you need to have them, as clear as I can say it, or else, these crazy things called human beings muck stuff up. So that was the second piece, is to adapt ground rules, set them deliberately, set them intentionally, and enforce them, for crying out loud. It's imperative. And I'm just going to go back to answer Chris's question. So for those of you who don't know what he's asking how do high Ds. So this is from a, let's call it personality profiling, although the DISC people will hate that, personality profiling process called DISC. And people who are high Ds, which I am D off the chart and I off the chart, we have a tendency to give direction, be direct, and not put up with a whole bunch of silliness and entertainment. And high Ds on the hot seat, 2 things. Number 1 is you just got to get them to be quiet, first and foremost, which is, this is not your chance to chit-chat, this is your chance to receive, okay? So you've got to put a pretty tight parameter around that. But here's the honest God truth. If your mastermind group is, and a high D would only join a mastermind group that they know that there is contribution, that there is value, that there is significance, that there are some rock stars in the room. If the high D is in a room of rock stars, the high D is totally willing to be suggested, told what to do, given inspiration, all those sorts of things. They made the decision, generally speaking, for most high Ds, as long as they know what they're getting into, they made the decision to be in the hot seat and to try to get support and resources from the other members back when they bought it. Now, sometimes you just have to remind them about, these are the ground rules and all the rest of it, but that's how that goes. So for the most part, it's not bad. But if you end up with a high D who thinks that they are all that in a bag of chips and have a whole bunch of judgments about the placement and the capacity of the other people in the room, then you're going to have a shit show, to be perfectly frank. A complete and utter shit show. And Chris, if there's more thoughts or clarification or questions about that, please just let me know and I will do my best to address and put those pieces together. All right. Now, here's the next piece, and this is down under the category, and you'll see that the last section is a whole section, in terms of, if you haven't gotten it out already, is a whole section about additional resources. And here's one of the hints that I want you to be clear about. And there's a bit of a how do I put this? there's a bit of a rub, and you've got to be really clear again about the purpose and the promise of your mastermind and your community. So at the back of the manual, there's a whole bunch of tools. There's tools to keep track of agreements that you made. There's tools to keep track of who's in the hot seat next. There's tools to keep track of, all of these elements. Now, in my humble opinion, Chris, I'll read that in a second. In my humble opinion, a woman on my team, she runs our lead program, which is our high-end 12-month program. She is a giving, loving mother at heart, and she takes care of 12 million details that, frankly, I just won't and don't. I tease her about doing too much. By the way, she teases me about doing too little. And my whole thing is, look, you were all sitting here, you're the one in the hot seat, you take care of it, I'm not babysitting you, that's not why I came here. But the tools that at the back, in terms of keeping track of who's on the hot seat, who's been buddied up with one another, who's the hot seat coach, what is the topic of the hot seats and what themes are they following through on, what goals did they set at the beginning of the year, and how can you stay on top of and consistently supporting them with the very reason why they joined the mastermind. I want you to be very clear about those structures. They're suggestions. They're things that we used. They are things that some mastermind leaders use more than other mastermind leaders in terms of Jeanette and I. But the part I need you to know is this. The more effort you put in to tracking their progress. In fact, we even have one of that's not a part of this man, it's called a value log, where we ask our mastermind members to actually write down their wins, write down their takeaways, write down the results and experiences they've created there. We just call it the value log. The more on top of their value and the more we can support them in the pieces that matter, the better you look and the greater your renewals are when the first year is up. Now, so use those frameworks as, let's just call them suggestions, and you adapt what you need to keep track of, how you are going to keep track of it, and what you are going to do versus what you're going to get the group to do. There's no right answer to that. There's no wrong answer to that. It's back to our good old promise. Now, we're almost wrapped up here. There was one other thing I want to tell you about that, but frankly, it has escaped my brain. It'll come back. So gang, a couple of things about this. First and foremost, if you got the Mastermind Mentors Manual and you haven't opened it up and read it, that is step one. That's the biggest. Use the damn thing. Read it. It will inspire you and lead you in another direction, which I think is what Chris was just saying here. Which is, I have to say that before I saw this video series, I didn't know what to do. However, I now have high-profile directors signed up within a week. Chris, I cannot tell you how happy that makes me. That is freaking outstanding. So congratulations. Wins like that just make my day. It's the very purpose that this series exists. So back to the things I want you to do. Read the manual. The second piece of this is I want you to decide on a structure for your meeting that again is in alignment with the purpose. Third, I want you to figure out what ground rules are necessary for you. Now, I want to just give you an example of a ground rule. Because we were talking, and the ground rules have to, again, go back to the purpose. So if it's a low $97 a month mastermind, you know what? For the most part, it's like show, don't show. We are not going to do a makeup with you, and you choose wisely, and you don't get a refund. It's just that simple. Now, at the high end with our Vita group, that was $24,000. And this was, by the way, we did not suggest this as facilitators. We asked the group to make a decision about what it was going to be. They had a ground rule of this. It was attend the mastermind retreat, or there has to be death or blood. And what that meant was somebody in your immediate family died, or you're in the hospital bleeding. Because if you do not attend, and one of those two things isn't true, then you'll soon be bleeding because we're going to kick your ass. Like literally, that was the ground rule. Death or blood. Now that might seem a little extreme to you. It's just that these were a bunch of high-profile, multi-millionaire entrepreneurs who had shit going on all over God's green earth, and it would be easy for any of them to come up with a great reason not to attend. But the truth of the matter was this, is that the value was in all of them being there, and they were either going to make that commitment to that group or they were not, okay? So I'm not saying there's a right way to do it, I'm not saying there's a wrong way to do it, but you must put deliberate thought into the ground rules. And then the third part about adapting the manual is figure out how are you going to track data? How are you going to track who's been buddies? How are you going to track who's been in the hot seat? How are you going to track the goals that they said they were going to do? And when you figure those things out, that again puts you at a whole different level of mastermind delivery and a whole different level of mastermind sort of professionalism that will absolutely knock your socks off. Now, I'll tell you one other thing that is kind of fun. In our Launch Your Mastermind 90-Day Bootcamp, we have what's called a companion manual. I'll do it this way, a companion manual. And this is another way of just cranking up the professionalism. So not only does the facilitator have their manual, but every single person who comes in gets an adapted manual that includes the ground rules, that includes the structure, that includes all of the forms, that includes all of those pieces, that includes it. We do another tool which is a commitment contracting piece. There's a little contract at the front of it that helps remind them of why they're there. So again, it's just that level of one step up from what most people do. So anyway, those are the top 3 hints about how to use the manual. But the most important thing under the sun is, for crying out loud, use it. And I really want you to. Okay, are there any other questions that I can answer or support with? The long and the short of it is this, gang. I want you to do 2 things. Make sure that you are registered for the live training. The live training is coming up tomorrow. That's the encore, and it is called The 3 Ludicrous Lies that entrepreneurs tell themselves that stall growth, cause failure, and make their lives hard. And of course, I will share with you exactly what you can do about them. And shock of all shocks, Masterminds is a big piece of it. I would love to support you there. And on that note, and that's tomorrow evening. So we are going to be back tomorrow with our standard 3 o'clock Facebook Live. And do you remember what our topic is tomorrow, Stephen? I might have to look it up. It's a good one. Actually, I'll tell you in a second what it is, so that because I don't want you to miss any of these pieces. And tomorrow, yes. Oh, this is unbelievably important. Tomorrow, it might be slightly longer than, we usually do 3 points. Tomorrow is the 7,982 reasons why masterminds fail. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I will give you the top 3. And these are real issues that you need to design into the delivery of your mastermind so that you do not become a casualty of a mutiny on the mastermind. All right, my friends, we will see you tomorrow. Have a fantastic day, and make sure you get registered for the live training. You will absolutely love it, and I will download some of the secrets to making this stuff actually happen. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.